Hello, everyone. Welcome to Software Testing Mentor and RCV Academy. Today, we are here with Jyoti Ranjan, who is an engineering graduate, and he has worked as a guest lecturer in one of the engineering colleges. After that, he moved to a technical support role and working in Bangalore at the moment. And now he's trying to move into software testing, has done a lot of learning around software testing and a brief about the software test automation as well. So let's welcome Jyoti Ranjan. Hi, Jyoti, how are you?
Hi, sir. Thanks for having me here. And I'm good. How are you,
Thank
sir?
you. Thanks, Jyoti. I'm good, thanks. So Jyoti, before we get started, I would like to mention that this video is getting recorded and will be posted on YouTube for other viewers to watch. So are you fine with that?
Yes, I'm totally fine.
Excellent.
Nice.
So you are fine if I call you Jyoti or Jyoti Ranjan? What is comfortable?
Jyoti would be fine.
Jyoti would be fine. All right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just let me know. And you can call me Manish. That's absolutely fine. Okay. Over the period of interview.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of, IT, everyone takes person's name. So that's absolutely fine.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So Jyoti, let's get started. So tell me something about your professional background, about yourself, what you have done till now, and why you want to move into software testing.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Jyoti Ranjan Dharai, and basically I'm from Odisha, and I'm a BTech graduate, and I stay in Bangalore, but currently I'm staying at hometown because of some issues in my family. And after graduation, I worked as a guest lecturer in my own college. Then I worked in my college for almost 2 years. Then some incident took place, and I switched my career to technical support background. And I joined a company, Concentrix, and the client was Lenovo. And I'm working since March this year.
Mhm.
And I've always interested in QA domain, and I was always looking for an opportunity to switch my career. And I think now is the time to switch my career from technical background to QA domain. So I'm really trying to get into QA domain right now.
Absolutely. Great. So Jyoti Ranjan, so what are you doing? What efforts are you making at the moment to enter into software testing? I mean, why software testing interests you, and what efforts are you making at the moment?
Okay, so why I'm interested in QA? Let me answer you this question. Testing is a relevant, events in our own life. I mean, we do testing in day-to-day life, but we never we never know what it is technically means. So when I decided I want to switch my career to QA domain, so I started researching on YouTube how what option career paths in the QA domain there are. I came across there are two paths: manual testing and automation testing. And so I started to learn step by step. So I first tried to learn what is manual testing. So and I went through every possible online lecture on YouTube. And actually my friends are also working in QA domain, and I asked them. They also helped me with some of the testing real-time scenarios. I think I have now understood how things works in a real-time scenario for manual testing, and how the software development process goes on, how the testing lifecycle goes on. So I have the real-time idea, but I'm just looking for an opportunity to work with real-time.
Sure. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, cool. So I think this might be a question, Jyoti Ranjan, that you might be asked because you are moving from a technical support role to a QA role, and you
Yes.
have to basically back up with why you are interested into the software testing role. And you have covered, like you have already mentioned, that you are surrounded with testing day to day, right? You most of the time.
Yes.
So basically quality is something you can add something to this answer, is that everyone looks for a quality product or service, or any person, human being, or any organization, they look for quality. And
Yes.
when you started learning about the quality software testing and how you can add value and ensure the value of the products that come into the market, that attracted you. And because QA domain is such a vast domain, it's not tied up to something, some programming language, wherein say for example you are picking up a development role, you stick to a particular programming language, and your breadth of knowledge is not that much as compared to the QA engineer, right? So just mention all these things, that you take pride in all the details that you have learned till now. And because of the breadth of exposure that this role gives to you as a manual tester, as an automation tester, because if you start as a tester, you won't just be sticking to manual testing. You will be learning a lot of programming, scripting languages, which will give you a lot of exposure overall in the industry, and that's what excites you to be part of the software testing. All right. So you're getting it, the difference, how you can basically show that you are actually interested, and how this role is much better for your career growth when you see yourself as part of this role, rather than being going into development or other roles. So there is no role that is good or bad, but a role which fits your aspirations and needs is the role that is best for you, right? And you have to basically make sure that you back it up with the relevant examples. I've given you all this detail because you are the person who will be asked this, and I was in similar situation as you. When I started my career 17 years ago, I was a technical support engineer working with the Cisco products. So I know that I have been asked this similar question. So you might be asked something like this as well. All right. So let's move on to the testing questions straight away. I'll test your understanding around the software testing, what you have learned till now, and see where you stand. So can you give me some of the phases in software testing life cycle?
So when software development process starts, it starts with requirement collection, right? So after requirement collection and everything has been done, coding part has been done, and then the executable package, the developer gave it to the testers, right? So the testing process goes like this. I mean, we have to understand the requirement first, what the client wants. Then we have to make a test plan according to it. Test plan could contain the scope of testing. I mean, which areas to be tested and which area are not to be tested. Like that, then test approach should be there, and what testing methodology should we follow. So covering that up in test plan should be made after requirement, after understanding the requirement. Then after the test plan has been made, then we directly go for test case, writing the test cases. So test case can be written first according to the requirement. We have some scenarios. We have to write down the test scenarios first, and according to each test scenario, we have to derive some test cases around it. And then we have to check the coverage of test cases, whether every requirement has covered by writing test cases or not. So in order to do that, we have to make a testability matrix, which helps us to cross check whether every requirement is covered or not. So after then we have to get approval from our test lead whether the test cases are valid, logically valid or not. So after that, we can directly go for the test case execution on the working side that we have in our company, any company. Then there, suppose any defects we found. Defect means if some functionalities are not working as per the requirement, then that is defect. So we found any defect, then we have to report that to the developer, to the respective developer. They will look into it. They will give a fix. After they give a fix, then we have to again retest it to make sure that the functionality is working fine. Then after all of things has to be done, then we need to submit the test report. I mean, nowadays in Jira, we don't need to document everything. So after that, we have at the end of every sprint, I mean, in the agile methodology, every sprint, And then we have a retrospective meeting in which we discuss all of these things, what went well and what improvement can we make in the upcoming sprint that we discuss in that meeting. So this is how it goes.
Right. Yeah. So you have covered overall, like test life cycle very well. Couple of things that are specific to project. So like reviewing your test cases with the test lead that you have mentioned. It could be test lead, it could be your peer person or other team member. So it depends which project, but either ways it's fine. Your answer is absolutely fine. And I'll come to the Jira and Agile part. So you have worked in Agile, or you have exposure to Agile. I would say you have exposure to Agile, you have exposure to Jira. So we'll come to those questions as well. All right. So absolutely correct. I mean, you have covered all the phases there, and you know what happens in those phases. So that's absolutely fine. Now moving on to the next one. So can you name, can you explain what exactly is functional testing with examples? So give me some example of functional testing.
Yes, exactly. So functional testing, see, whenever developer makes an executable file, right, we cannot see the internal piece of code, which we call as black box testing. Then we go for the first smoke testing. We have to go for smoke testing because we have to make sure that the application is stable, the application is opening, the basic functionality, basic flow of the application should work. Smoke testing we do for the first time, right? So to give an example, like practical example, I can give you, like whenever we cook a dish, right? Suppose we cook chicken. Then after following each and every recipe, after the 70-80% of the chicken has been cooked, so we have to test like whether the chicken is boiled or not. That is our first requirement. So that is smoke testing. So after getting a confirmation that the chicken is boiled, then we go for the extra like testing, like the salt is adequate or not, the spices, right? So if that we can call as functional testing. Suppose we found that the salt is less, then that is a bug, and we have to again add some the required salt we have to add. So again we have to test. That means we have to retest the new functionalities we have added. So like that it goes. Functional,
absolutely.
yes. So functional testings, like it can also be called as component testing. Like we have to test each and every component of an application. Like suppose we have a home page, then there we can have the header link, then the login functionality, the sign up functionality, the footer link. Then after logging into the application, the home page should be displayed like this. Suppose this is a Facebook application. Suppose a Facebook application, I'm taking an example as. Then after logging in, we should be able to see the message. We have to we should be able to send a friend request to our friends. Like that, the flow should work. So each and every component we should test. So that is known as functional test.
Right. So functional, I mean, you have given the example correctly. Only one correction there. Do not tie up this functional testing with component testing. Like unit testing is sort of a part of it, you can say, but functional testing is more broader, right? So like you test the functionality, and functionality could be tested at the unit level, integration level, system level. So all of that comes into the functional testing. So say, for example, you took the example of login, right? Login to Facebook application, sending the friend request. So you are basically testing the overall functionality of that application, that you are able to send the request, and that's one of the functionality of the application, right? So that's what the functional testing is, and your understanding is correct. Just little bit refinement, but your understanding around functional testing and the example that you provided for the smoke, that when the initial build you got, right, you do a bit of quick smoke test to ensure that the build is good enough to go ahead to do further testing on it, right? So it doesn't break immediately, right? So say, for example, you are testing an application and the application has been installed in the test environment, and you launch it and you are not able to launch it, then how could you proceed further with the testing, right? So that's what that you have already covered as smoke. So absolutely fine. Now moving on. So what is early testing? And why do we need
Early
to learn
testing,
those? Yeah.
yes. It is one of the principle of software testing. That means we have to start testing at the earliest stage. I mean, we have to start testing from the requirement. Whenever the requirement comes into picture, then we have to start verifications, various requirements like customer requirement, and then software requirement, then functional requirement. We have to verify all that. So this is just to make sure that we are building the right product. Before that, we have to do all of those verification. So,
Absolutely, yes. So it's a principle and it's a practice, right? You
yeah.
should, like start the testing as early as possible, right? And can you give me maybe, some drawbacks that we used to have in previous development approaches, like waterfall, and why did waterfall was not a good, what were the drawbacks in that approach?
See, in waterfall, what happens is that after requirement is freezed, and we move further for the feasibility study, then we
Mhm.
cannot just go back to change. If there is any requirement, I mean, there is a need to change the requirement. We
Mhm.
cannot do that. So if we don't verify the requirement at that point, if a bug is present in that point, then it will be carried forward to the I mean, to the end of the software development process. So it will be, I mean, the cost would be very more if we have to start from the right from the beginning if we want to avoid the bug. So that is the major drawback why we don't use waterfall method.
Right. And similar lines, right? Like you mentioned that you can't go back and change the requirement. You can, but the cost becomes really high, right?
Cost will be, yes.
And
Yeah.
and early testing was not the key aspect in the waterfall model,
Yeah,
right? So
which is,
after one phase got over, requirement gathering and analysis got over, then it used to move to next phase, design, then development, and testing used to come later. So by the
later,
time,
yes.
if requirement, like you mentioned, if requirement defect was there, by the time it went to the coding and testing, it has to go back to the requirement if it is a requirement defect, and cost becomes
Yes.
really high. So that was,
Yeah.
the reason why early testing principle is being established, and that's where new development approaches like V model and now, agile scrum
Agile.
came in picture, right? Great. So absolutely fantastic answer. Now let's move on to the next question. Can you give me some examples of negative test cases of the login functionality of the page? Maybe just, yeah, one or two examples.
Yeah, sure. Negative test case we write. I mean, there is no such rule for negative test case. Writing negative test cases, we can go in the opposite direction, right? So if the requirement says the username allows only 8 to 20 characters, so we
Mhm.
can randomly put alphanumeric type. We can randomly, if the password requires to be filled in like alphanumeric password, it requires 8 to 20 characters, we can put like 100 characters randomly. So that
Mhm.
is negative testing. I mean, it doesn't follow any rule. We just have
Right.
to randomly.
Right. Yes. So basically, anything. So what your positive scenario asks you to do, apart from that, you figure out the key areas or key inputs that might break the system or that might not be handled properly, like you mentioned, alphanumeric, special characters, right? If it is an input field.
Yes.
So you try to perform your test cases with that. So absolutely correct. Have you done any sort of negative testing in the real application? I mean, do you
Yes. Yes.
like Facebook application or any application? Did
Yes.
you try like learning software testing? Many people think that you need to be in software industry to learn it, right? But it's
So,
an art that you
exactly.
can you can learn just
Yeah.
by following the videos from the industry experts. You will see a
Mm.
lot of YouTube videos there, and by just using the applications that you use day to day and try to write the test cases for that, because
Yes.
in the industry you will do similar sort of things, right? So domain might
Exactly.
change, but the concepts of testing still
Concept
remain same everywhere.
remains same. Yeah.
So
exactly.
that's because the answer that you have provided looks like you have done some sort of testing, some applications that you have used, the combinations that you have specified around negative testing basically
Yes.
shows that you have done some sort of work there. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on. So let's move to the next question. So I would like to understand some of the, because you have mentioned in your resume that you have done testing of the web applications, right? So I would like to understand what are some of the configurations to consider when you are testing the web application. So like browser OS, what sort of configurations you generally consider?
Okay, so in terms of configuration, like we have to understand in what environment we're working, where we are working, like the OS, if it is Linux or if it is Mac OS or it is Windows. So we have a different methodologies for each environment, right? So then comes the network, right? Web-based application requires internet connection, and another thing like if it is, I mean, so I'm actually imagining. So
Yeah, absolutely
that.
fine. Yeah, just think about it. I mean, see, web application. Okay, before you answer this, can you explain, or can you give me some of the examples that you daily use, which are web applications?
Yes, I use Google Chrome, like Google Chrome. I use IDM to download things, and I Internet Download Manager, and I use like I mean, a lot of application I use. I mean, the to play videos, and like what else?
So
A lot of
your
application we use
yeah,
generally.
so your Chrome in itself is not a web application. Okay, so Chrome is a browser. Okay,
Yeah.
which is on your machine. When we say web application, is an application that you can access over the internet on the browser, right?
Yeah.
So Facebook, Amazon, Flipkart, Instagram, all of these social media websites
All
you
of
would
these
be
things.
using,
Yes.
mostly every day. LinkedIn, all these are web applications. So when you say, for example, you are testing Facebook, say, for example, you are testing, what configurations you would think of in terms of operating systems and browser when you test?
So I personally use Windows operating system, and I prefer Google Chrome over any other browser.
So usually that's one combination of it, right? Windows with Chrome. But I might be using Mac, and Mac
Mac with
comes with Safari, right? So that's another
Yes.
configuration for testing web application. Windows with Firefox, Windows with Opera,
Edge,
Windows with
Microsoft
an
Edge.
other browser, yeah, Edge, and Linux with the browser. So basically, and then these applications work on mobile as well. So you can launch Facebook on the mobile browser, mobile OS, and the browser as well. So Android, iOS. So there is
iOS.
numerous
Okay.
possibility, so wherein you can test these web applications. So when somebody asks about the browser and OS combinations, so basically this list usually comes from the requirements. Okay, so it won't be
Yeah.
something which is random that will come to you as a tester. When there is a, say, for example, bank that is building an application, so they will specify that as this particular application needs to work on these sort of combinations. So it should work on Windows, Mac OS with the combination of this browser. And you would have also noticed that there are many cross-browser testing companies and platforms available now, right? So when you write a Selenium script, you can run it in different combination of browser and OS combinations over the internet. So all these things, are very important when you are testing any of the web application. So just read a little bit around that. Web application, what exactly web application is, you will learn a lot around that. And then in terms of testing, how you will approach testing to that. Okay, all right, let's move on. So what is the difference between quality assurance and quality control? So QA and QC, have you heard those words, and what is the difference? Just 2-3 points.
I mean, quality assurance like we make sure the quality of the product and manually,
Mhm.
and quality control, I think kind of we write scripts to automate something, like
Mhm.
automate related to automation engineering, something like that.
Okay, so no, this is not correct. So quality assurance and control go hand in hand. Now,
Mm.
the very basic difference, I'll let you know that quality assurance is more of a verification part. So you would have seen the V model, right? So verification and
Mhm.
validation. So verification is without executing the software, you verify. So it's more of a process thing. So you go through, review the documents, you ensure that requirements doesn't have any gap, design is all good. As a team, you review. Okay. But when
Yeah,
it comes to quality control, it is more of a validation when you execute the software
validation.
and
Mhm.
test it actually. So when you work as a software tester over the period of time, so even like initially you will start more of a validation sort of a person who will do the testing as such. But as you grow in your career, it will be a mix of, you will be doing the QA and QC together. So you'll be suggesting the process ideas, how to prevent defects, and then along with that, how to
Mhm.
find defects or validate the software as well, right? So read a little bit, because this is very common question, and you will find a lot of
Mhm.
content over the internet on this. Okay.
Yes.
And V model you would already know, but same V
Yes.
model they might ask you something differently. Okay.
Mhm.
But that's absolutely fine. Do not get anything, like if you're not able to answer one or two
No,
questions,
no, no. I'm
no, it's,
fine.
it's absolutely
Yes, I'm
fine.
open
Okay.
to.
Even in the real interviews, like people with 20-30 years IT experience, they are not able
Mhm.
to answer questions. So no one knows everything, so that's absolutely fine, right? So it's absolutely fine not to know things, right? So yeah, let's move on. So you have also mentioned about the bugs, and the defect life cycle. So what are the key sections that you need to include in a bug report?
So whenever we report a bug in any of the tool, so first we have to mention like severity of the bug or the priority of the bug, and the bug is reported by whom. That there you have to mention,
Mhm.
and then in which version release it has to be fixed. That we need to mention there. Then we have to mention like whatever the steps we follow to reproduce that bug,
Mhm.
and we can also attach a screenshot if possible for the reference of the developer. So this is how we report a bug.
Right. Yeah. So screenshots, logs, expected result, actual result. So you have covered, like
Result.
couple of key
Yes.
points, which
Yeah.
is very good. Um, and have you tried writing a defect report yourself when you are learning?
Yes.
You have, right? Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
That's good, because like you can just randomly go to any website and try to
Yeah.
find defects. Okay. And as soon as you find defect, try to follow the steps that you
Mm.
have mentioned to write a defect summary report. Okay.
Yes.
And there are so many forums online, so just post it. Say for example, you post it on Quora. All right. Just
Mm.
put your report, post it on Quora, and ask from people suggestion, like how is this defect summary report that I have written as part of this defect looks like. So many experienced people will provide you answers, suggestions, and that's how you will improve a lot. Okay. So absolutely correct in terms of the sections that you have mentioned. Go ahead and practice, and you will be absolutely fine with all that. Okay. Now let's move on to the next one. So what is the purpose of deferred status in the defect life cycle?
Okay, so after we raise a bug, then it will be assigned to a developer, respective developer. So
Hmm.
there he has options like if he doesn't, if he doesn't, if he do, if he not able to reproduce that bug, so he will mark it as non-reproducible.
Hmm.
And if he thinks that this bug is not valid, he
Hmm.
can, when mark the bug as invalid, he can reject the bug. And
Hmm.
if he thinks that this bug is not that, I mean, not that priority bug, it can be fixed in the upcoming sprints.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for that release, it is not important, but if it can be fixed in the upcoming release, then you can mark it as a deferred defect. And if the bug is raised by someone else, and I'm raising the bug once again, then he can mark it as duplicate. So,
Right. Yeah. Great. So you covered deferred, but along with that, you covered a lot of other good points around defect
yes.
summary report, which is absolutely fine, because whatever you covered as part of the status in the defect lifecycle is absolutely correct. So yes, defect are deferred if, say, for example, they are not very critical and can be taken up in the later releases, they can defer it. And many teams give the say to developers themselves that you can defer the defect if you think so, but many places in the actual projects, if the project is very critical and business people say, for example, product owner wants to have a look at the defects before they are deferred, so they can be the key person to make sure which defects get deferred. Okay, so developers can discuss with product owner, and some places developers have their rights to, if product owner has said you can decide based on your understanding, they can. So actually, at the ground level, things work a bit differently. So it's not always the bookish understanding as we get, right? So it could be either ways, but your answer in terms of deferred defects is absolutely correct. Who does it, when does it, you will get to know once you are, like in the industry. It varies as per the project. Okay, so moving on. So till now, any questions, any doubts?
Not now. At the end, I'll.
Okay. So which defect management tool and test management tools are you aware of?
So I am aware of Jira as both test management tool and bug reporting tool as well.
Right.
And Bugzilla, I know a little bit.
Right. Okay. So Bugzilla, have you used to report defect?
One or two times while learning, I used it one or two times.
Sure. And Jira, do you have
same.
Jira you used for test management?
Yes.
So which plugin do you use in Jira for test management? Does Jira come with default test management or it has some extension?
Only plugin I'm aware of is Zephyr plugin is there. Actually,
Sure.
my friends, they were working. I used to observe things by remote session. So they used to they used to write test cases, test scenarios in the Zephyr plugin. So and they had separate bug reporting project also.
Sure.
And in one project they used to manage the test cases, the task, and to report a bug they had another project assigned to them. So like
Sure.
that they used to.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's good that you are learning from your friends and you know about Zephyr in Jira, because that's very widely used test management plugin. Because Jira doesn't come with default test management functionality. Defect management is there within Jira by default, but test management, you have to get the add-on, which is Zephyr. You are aware of how to write the test cases within that. So and Jira Cloud, you can sign up for free and you can go ahead and practice, because Jira is very widely used. Okay, so go ahead and practice the defect logging and etc. there. So that's absolutely fine. Let's move on. So what is system testing, and when should you start system testing?
So system testing is like it is an end-to-end testing. So after we are done with the component testing and integration testing, so at the end we go for system testing. We need to make sure that the whole functionality of an application, starting from the beginning to the end, it should work as per the requirement. We need to make sure that, and the environment, it should be similar to the production environment that we need to take care of. So this is how system testing is done.
Right. Yeah. Cool. So you mentioned the environment should be similar to the production. That's correct. If your system is sort of, I mean, it's mostly correct. When the system is, say, for example, you are developing a system which in itself doesn't provide or just out of the box, that system is not a standalone system. In that case, that will be integrated to other systems, right? So
Yes.
that will be system integration testing, and that's where SIT. So ST and SIT go hand in hand, basically. So first system testing is done, then SIT is done, and SIT is mostly where it should be very close to production environment, right? So if your system is a standalone system, yes, your answer is absolutely correct, that the environment of system testing has to be very close to the production.
Close to those. Yes.
And if it is, sort of something which is integrated with other systems, then SIT is your more of a final sort of application. Then that SIT environment should be very close to the production. Okay, that's great. So you have also mentioned about SQL, that you are aware of the SQL. So are you comfortable if we go ahead with the SQL questions as well, the basic questions? Sure.
Yes.
Okay. So what is join in SQL?
Join we use whenever we want to retrieve the data from two or more tables. Like for example, if a table A contains the name, first name and last name, and the roll number, and the second table contains a roll number and the marks in two subjects, right? So if you want to retrieve data, first name, last name, and the marks in that subject along with the roll number. So we have to combine the both table by join functionality of join.
Right. So based on something common between those tables,
common, yes.
right?
It has to be something common, yes.
Yeah. So what was common in the example that you took?
Roll number.
Roll number. Yes, absolutely. So you have written some of the queries, SQL queries already?
Yes, actually, I practiced in HackerRank.
Oh, great.
2-star profile.
Great. Yes. So absolutely correct. Yeah. And you are aware of different types of joins? Can you name few?
Yes. Yeah. So there are 4 types of joins, like inner join, left join, they're basically outer join, left outer join, right outer join, and full join. In inner join, you will get the common data, and the left join means the common data along with the left side portion you will get. On the right side, it will be showing as null. After the common part. And the full join, you will get the whole data.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, as per the types of joins, absolutely correct. And I won't go into too much detail of these join queries, because this is more of a basic level. But yeah, your answer is absolutely correct. In terms of join, you are aware, you have practiced that you search based on something common, and there are multiple ways. This is very, very widely used in software testing. If you know how to use joins, how to write queries, you will be really, really good tester. So keep practicing, and it will be really helpful in your overall career. Okay. So you have also mentioned about Postman and API testing. So let's cover a little bit about the API testing. So I'll just ask a very basic, like, what exactly is API testing? What do you understand by API testing?
So I know that, developers write the business logic for each and every functionality. So instead of when the UI is not prepared, so we have to test the logic. Suppose there is a login logic, and the developer provides an API to us. So we have to test that. So to define API, it is an interface which works between two or more applications to connect. API, there is two things, right? API and a web service. And API might not require internet, or might require internet, but web service always requires internet connection.
Yeah.
So I can give you example, like web service, like we book ticket from AirAsia. So AirAsia has its own portal to book tickets, and Make My Trip also provides to it also helps to book ticket. So they are using a web service of AirAsia's their portal as in their own application. So this is an example of web service. And API is like in our computer laptop. Suppose I am using, and there is hardware installed in it. So how we access hardware means through and there is an interface, right? Through which we access the hardware, like Wi-Fi. There's Wi-Fi card in it, and we access the Wi-Fi through an API is
Yeah.
working in the backend.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so API testing, how we do means developer provides us with an URL, and we have different kinds of HTTP methods like get, post, put, patch, delete. So according to, suppose this is a sign-up functionality, then we have to validate through a post method. Like we have to pass a parameter, a body we have to pass, then it will give a response. So according to the status code, we have to validate whether the test case has passed or not. So like that, we do API test in Postman.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, what sort of, are you aware of the REST and SOAP? Have you heard those words? REST and SOAP?
Yes, I have like a little bit knowledge about REST.
Right.
So
Okay.
they're like a style of writing, architectural style, I think, REST API. And like in REST, we can it supports .xml, JSON, and JavaScript, all that language. But in SOAP UI, it only supports .xml version. And
yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's sort of, when you mention like the Postman and about the API testing, so most of your initial answer is correct in terms of API and web service that you have mentioned. Like web service requires internet, API can be your application running on your computer, like your Selenium WebDriver is your API, right? So you call those methods, and that's an API which runs on your computer to launch the browser, etc. That's absolutely correct. In terms of testing, you have covered that you get the URL. So when you mention the URL, try to be specific about SOAP and REST, because you will very frequently be either testing a SOAP web service or REST. Mostly nowadays you will be testing REST web services. GraphQL is another one, like the recent development, which you can read, and all the information is there over the internet, but read a little bit and then use Postman to test these web services. There is a complete series that I have posted on a SOAP UI, which covers the automation part of the API testing as well. If you'll go through it, you will get the practical usage of API testing with the real APIs, like the Asana application API. So they are the real APIs. They are not dummy APIs. So that is there. Postman, I have posted 12, 13 videos, which is more of a manual API testing, which will be extended to automation level very soon. But understand SOAP and REST properly, read about it. But apart from that, your understanding about API and web service is okay, all right. But read a little bit more and practice a little bit more around API, because the reason being, only manual testing, if you go ahead and find the job, it's a little bit challenging, because nowadays you have to come up with the manual testing, overall testing, then API, along with that a little bit, like automation, Selenium. So if you have a package of it, you will be very soon in the good company. Okay. So, but overall, whatever you have read till now, based on that, I can see that you have practiced things, you have good understanding of things. You just have to keep learning the way you are at the moment and refining the answers more, so that your chances of selection get more. Okay. So I think that's pretty much it. The last question I would like to ask is related to the API, because you have mentioned about some of the status codes. So you would have came across some of the status codes. So like HTTP response codes, like what response codes have you noticed when you used Postman, like post request?
For post request, if something is successfully created, then we get 201 status code.
Yeah.
For get, we
yeah.
For get status code is like 200. Get.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And if there is like a server error, so basically anything 200 series is
automation.
good like success. So whether it has been
Success.
created, so anything with the 200 series. So you do not need to memorize each and every number,
Yeah.
right? You will eventually learn it, but get a broad list, like 200 means what, 300 means what, 400 means what, and 500 means what, and 100 means what, right?
Yeah.
So like say for example, did you get any server error, like internal server error?
It is like 500 series, I think. 500
Yes,
server
yes,
error.
yeah. So just like the overall high level, but I think you have read and these error levels. If you can go ahead and learn a little bit more in terms of number, but I think that's not required, because even I do not remember all those error codes. Okay, so
Yeah.
those
Yes.
error codes, it's unnecessary to memorize all of those things which you do not require. So the high level, as part of your testing, high level, you should know what these error code means. And if you get these error codes, you should be able to correlate, okay, this is because of this, and you update your request accordingly, so you get the relevant response. So I think that's pretty much it, Jyoti Ranjan. And we are at the end of the interview. So it was great talking to you. Now, do you have any questions before we get into the feedback?
Um, like, I mean, I think I'm fine.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I'm expecting your feedback.
Sure. Okay. So let's start with the resume. All right. So your resume needs makeover, basically. I mean, you need to change your resume. Okay. It is very, very basic, and it doesn't include the work experience, what exactly you have done as part of your roles in previous work. It doesn't include any of that. Okay, so in the summary you have mentioned a lot of things about software testing, which is good, but then you need to mention more about your work experience, prior work experience, and what tools, what processes you have used, so that you can explain the recruiter what you have actually done in the past. It doesn't matter that you were into the technical support role. What you did there is a learning for you, and you would have done a lot of good work there, right? So just mention all of that. Along with that, you mention about, you have knowledge about Postman, you have knowledge about Jira, about SQL. Mention a list of these tools and technologies into your resume. And if you go to my channel, I have posted a sample resume video, right, which how to make the QA resume, and there is a template as well. Okay, so you can just download that and use that template to make a presentable resume which will have everything. Okay, so that's the resume part. The second bit is, I have anyways gave you feedback as we went along with the questions. You need to prepare more and keep learning more. Okay, but based on you being new, absolutely new, and learning by yourself, you have really good understanding whatever you have learned till now. And you are not just learning by just watching the video, you are actually doing this stuff. You are doing you are doing practice in HackerRank, which is absolutely fine. As I advised, go ahead, write the defect templates, write the test case samples, post it in forums like Quora, and ask for people's suggestions. Okay, that's the only thing. You have to keep continuing and reading more about API testing, and start the Selenium automation as well alongside, because your manual testing is okay. All right, so keep learning manual testing, but add more value, so that once you have your resume in front of recruiter, you definitely get call. And once you get call, you should be in the company, right? So it's just a matter of like 1 to 2 3 months max. If you start today, API testing and automation, Selenium with Java you pick, you will be in very good shape as compared to where you are now. Okay, so just have all that package, and that will really help you to get very good opportunities. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you don't start applying. You are well prepared. Okay, if there is any relevant role that comes in, you will, at this level as well, you will be able to crack the software testing interview. Okay, but if you have more things like API testing and automation, it will be really, really helpful. It will be really sort of a, a booster for your career. Okay, so that's a bit of a suggestion, and that's it from me.
Thank you so much, sir, for the advice.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Jyotiranjan, and it was a pleasure talking to you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too, sir.
Thank you.